Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I signed for the radios at 1840 under a sodium orange sky that made the parking lot look like a stage set. The incident commander had converted the Civic Center across from City General Hospital into a unified command post, with folding tables, hand-sketched maps taped together, and a whiteboard listing task organizations. The call signs felt like a throwback to training. Bravo teams for interior operations, Charlie for perimeter, Delta for transport. My badge said police sergeant, but tonight the patchwork was the point. Police, fire, EMS, and the National Guard working off one plan. The order was simple in text and complicated in practice. City General had confirmed reanimation events in 2 separate wards and reported multiple power irregularities. The elevators were unreliable. A pediatric helicopter was inbound in under an hour. The hospital administration had asked for help to move ventilated patients and evacuate pediatrics to the helipad. Our task force was to clear the ICU to the surgical floor, locate trapped staff, establish a casualty collection point at the ambulance bay, and push a safe corridor to the roof. My element was 4 people. I made the introductions over the hood of our borrowed rescue truck so I wouldn't forget them under stress. Morales, I said. City PD. Call sign Bravo 1. I'll carry the primary VHF and the UHF for hospital security. Jamal Reed, the tall officer to my left said, tapping the shoulder mic clipped to his plate carrier. Patrol, rifle certified, Bravo 1 Alpha. Captain Alina Park, Engine 12, the firefighter in bunker pants and a lightweight wildland jacket said, holding up a roll of surveyor's tape and a grease pencil. I've got the extrication kit, Halligan, chains, 2 portable inverters, and a couple of battery packs we can run ventilators on. Bravo 1, Bravo. Specialist Miguel Ortiz, 178 Infantry, the guardsman said, checking his aid bag. NREMTP, I'll handle triage and airway. Bravo 1, Charlie. We ran quick checks. Park demonstrated the inverter setup. Pure sine wave, isolated ground, with a short multi-outlet cable and inline watt meter. Each battery was rated above 2 kilowatt hours. She'd done the math. 1 adult ventilator was roughly the draw of a small laptop plus a monitor depending on settings. 2 or 3 should run for hours, especially if we did not add warmers or extra devices. We had a second battery as a buffer. Radios, I said. Command is on VHF Command 2. Interior Operations, VHF TAC 3. Hospital Security, UHF 4. Our intra-squad fallback is simplex on 8 if we lose the repeater. Keep transmissions short. If you lose contact for more than 2 minutes, move to the last known good location. We rolled at 1853. The city around us was unevenly quiet. Empty downtown streets with an occasional car pulled over crooked, a siren in the distance, and every so often movement in peripheral vision that turned out to be nothing. Over the past 48 hours, what had begun as a containment plan had shifted to a whole-of-city schedule of controlled closures. The word quarantine wasn't being used on the radio. Everyone knew it without saying it. City General sat across from a small park and a light rail stop. The glass entryway was intact. 2 security officers waited just inside, masks on, eyes alert. Their names were Thomas and Rajan. They had taped floor arrows and a laminated copy of the incident action plan on the desk. ICU is on the 4th, Thomas said. Surgical is 5. ORs are between them. We lost steady power to one bank 5 hours ago. The generator is running, but it's not covering the full load, so the elevators are in protective mode. We've had them work for a few minutes, then stop. Stairwells are clear to 4. After that, we have conflicting reports. Any known hot zones? I asked. Radiology, he said. There were incidents in MRI and CT. Most of that is basement level. The service hallway that connects radiology to the main core is uncontrolled. Any staff accounted for in the ORs? Park asked. Nurses reported barricading in OR 3 with 2 patients intubated but not actively operated on, just in holding, Rajan said, looking at his notes. They were using portable ventilators on battery. No contact for the last 20 minutes. We signed into the hospital log and moved to the stairwell. We marked the entrance with a strip of orange tape and a grease pencil notation. B1, 1902, up. It wasn't just for us. There were 2 other interior teams working different sectors. The tape would tell them what was safe. We climbed in single file, one hand on the rail, staying to the wall so anyone coming down could pass. The air inside was cool and dry. The stairwell lighting flickered once, then stabilized. On the 3rd landing, we paused, checked radios, still good, and moved up. Bravo 2 reported they had cleared the emergency department bays 1 through 6 and had established a casualty collection point, CCP, at the ambulance entrance. That was our downstream node. If we had to move patients, that was the first destination. On 4, the door to ICU was propped with a wedge. That was not ideal. We closed it, cracked it back open, and sliced the threshold from the hinge and latch sides with our lights. The ICU was a racetrack design with a central nurse station. Monitors chirped. The wall clocks were exactly 2 minutes fast. A half-eaten meal tray sat on a charting desk, and there was a coffee ring around a stethoscope. The first 2 bays on the right were empty, beds made. The 3rd had a patient connected to a ventilator with no visible staff. The ventilator showed a battery icon at 60%. The patient's chest rose and fell. "Announce," I said. Park hit the door chime at the nurse station. The soft tone carried down both wings. "City Police and Fire," I called, clipped and loud. "Task Force Bravo, coming in." A nurse popped up from behind the station, hands raised to her shoulders. "I'm Leah," she said, eyes wide but steady. "Charge for nights. We have 4 intubated here and 2 on the step-down who can move with nasal cannula if we can get portable oxygen." Or called for help and then went quiet. "Any incidents in this unit?" I asked. "One on arrival from ED 2 hours ago," she said. "Security handled it. We've kept doors secured since." "Ventilator power?" Park asked. "We're on generator with battery backups," Leah said. "If the generator hiccups, we have minutes. We've been rotating battery packs to keep the older units charged." "Plan," I said to my team. "Read, check all doors, mark with chalk as you go. Ortiz, quick triage of intubated. Note settings and whether they can tolerate transport. Park, get your inverters staged at the desk and confirm battery levels." While they moved, I checked the stairwell door we'd entered and the 2nd stairwell at the far end. We would need both as options. The far door was locked. I noted that with a mark and a time code. Ortiz worked fast, voice low, hands methodical. "Bed 6 is on assist control with modest PEEP," he said to Park and me, pointing with his pen. "Bed 8 is pressure support and may tolerate an ambu bag if we need to move short distances. Bed 10 is the highest draw. If we have to ration, prefer 6 and 8 for move first." Leah brought a clipboard with patient initials. We kept names off the air and off shared sheets. It was a small piece of dignity in a chaotic night. We had to choose which ventilator bays to put on our portable inverters. Park did the power math out loud to keep us aligned. "One inverter will run 2 vents with margin," she said, watching the watt meter. "If we try for 3, we leave no buffer for alarms or a monitor spike." 2 and 2 is cleaner. If we lose the floor feed, these 2 inverters buy us hours. Leah bit her lip. Bed 10 is a tough case. We've been keeping him steady, but he desaturates with motion. Then Bed 10 gets one of our inverters, I said. Bed 6 gets the other on this wing. The others stay on floor power, and we keep an eye on their battery icons. If we see the generator drop, we pivot. Park connected the first inverter to Bed 10 with a measured motion, verifying the neutral ground isolation with a small tester. The ventilator didn't notice the transition. The inline meter stabilized around 110 watts. Bravo 3 came up on the radio, breathless but controlled. They had reached the pediatric floor and were consolidating children in one ward near the roof access. The helicopter ETA was sliding from 1935 to standby. Weather was not the issue. Airspace coordination and personnel were. I looked at the clock, 1911. Leah, I said, what's your staff count? On nights, she said. 2 RNs here now, me and Jamila, plus 1 respiratory therapist. We had 6. 3 went with security to help downstairs. I don't know if they made it back. Or said they had 2 nurses and a tech in 3. We haven't heard from them. We're heading there next, I said. I need you to keep these bays stable for 20 minutes without help. If we don't come back in 20, you move your patients to the wall side and prepare to shelter. We can do that, she said, voice flat in the way people sound when the job is the job. We marked the ICU as partial clear with time and initials. We took the inner stair to 5, the surgical floor, and found the door wedged from the other side with a linen cart. That was not protocol. We moved the cart quietly and stepped into a corridor lined with closed doors and a rolling heart monitor that had drifted to a stop near the elevator lobby. The elevator panel lights flickered on and off, then stayed dark. Bravo 1, moving to OR core, I said on TAC 3. No audible or visual contact yet. We followed the blue line on the floor toward the ORs. Hospital design tries to keep navigation idiot-proof. Color-coded lines and overhead signs meant you could get someone to the right operating room in a rush, even if they could not speak your language. The OR core was a square with rooms around the edges and a sterile equipment room in the middle. The big sliding doors to OR3 had a gurney shoved across them from inside and tape crisscrossing the glass. I knocked hard twice with a gloved fist. City Police and Fire, I called. Task Force Bravo, we're here to help. A woman's voice answered through the door. If you're real, tell me which way the doors in the OR open. On sliders, into the wall, Park said, leaning in. They're not good barricades, so you've got a gurney braced across. A pause. Then, okay, the voice said. We're 3 inside, 2 patients on vents. The portable batteries are almost done. We try to call to ICU, no answer. We answered, I said. We've got power help and a route to the stairwell. Do not open the doors until we tell you. We'll clear the core. We worked the perimeter. Reed watched the hall with his patrol rifle. I took the sterile core with Park, calling out corners and checking each alcove. Ortiz held at the OR doors, listening for changes in the ventilator rhythms inside. The lights in the core dimmed and then came back brighter. Somewhere, a generator load shed and reloaded. Satisfied, I signaled Park to prep 1 inverter at the door. We slid the gurney back just enough for her to snake the power cable through a crack. Inside, the nurse threaded it to a power strip and moved 1 ventilator plug with the care of a bomb tech. The inside vent stayed steady. The outside meter climbed to just under 100 watts. The second one would fit on the spare battery once we were in the room. Ready to enter? I asked. Yes, the voice said. There's a deadbolt bar on the inner secondary. We'll slide it. Stand by, I said. On entry, you're going to see 4 of us in masks and helmets. We will move you and the patients one at a time. Keep your hands visible and listen for instructions." They acknowledged. We opened the doors. Inside, Oregon 3 looked like a film set that had paused at a strange moment. The overheads were bright. The table was occupied, but the blue drapes were folded back down to the patient's chest. Not open, not active. A ventilator wheeled into position, hissed and clicked. A second patient lay on a stretcher with a transport vent, tubing neatly secured with tape. 2 nurses and a surgical tech in scrubs and gowns stood with masks on, eyes above the masks wide with relief that was already trying to turn into tears. "I'm Morales," I said. "This is Park, Reed, and Ortiz. We're going to move you to ICU first with the critical vent, then to the helipad staging for pediatrics once we have a corridor set. We won't leave you." The nurse who'd spoken, her badge said Aurora, gave a tightly contained nod. "We can move the patient on the stretcher first," she said. "He's stable." "Good," Ortiz said. "I'll take the head end on the stretcher. Park, you've got the inverter. Reed, security rear. Morales, point." We rehearsed the movement once verbally to keep it clean. Out of the OR, left to the stair, down 1 level to ICU entrance, handoff, then back up for the second patient and the staff. We made the first move. The hallway was quiet. The stairwell was clear. At ICU, Leah was ready with oxygen and a monitor. We moved the stretcher to Bay 8 and did a clean swap from the transport vent to the wall unit with no dips in numbers. I checked my watch. 1931. We went back for the second patient. The second move would be slower. The person on the OR table was heavier, and the OR vent was more sensitive. Park kept the inverter cable clear. Reed watched the cross corridors, rifle low and muzzle down unless he had to raise it. We reached the stairwell without incident. On the second step, the floor below us boomed. It was not an explosion. It was the sound of multiple doors slamming open at once, or a heavy thing being dropped. We halted by instinct. I looked at the walls. The paint showed a hairline crack running down from the landing. The generator dug in again and recovered. "Movement on 3? Reed asked, voice calm on tack 3. "Unknown," I said. "Hold." We listened. The stairwell amplified noises weirdly. Footsteps could sound like they were above when they were below. After 10 seconds, silence returned. We continued to the ICU and made the second handoff. The numbers stayed good. The staff exhaled as a group in a way I could feel in my own chest. We sent Aurora with them to help Leah. The surgical tech, a guy in his 30s named Daniel, stayed with us to close the OR and retrieve a crash cart. "Pediatrics?" he asked. I heard the chopper. "Working on it," I said. "We need a safe corridor to the roof. We'll mark it." We moved back up to 5. Park and Reed marked the walls with orange tape arrows and time codes. OR 3 was now empty of patients. Park pulled our inverter and coiled the cable. We'd need it for radiology if we had to pass through and keep anything running. We paused at the elevator lobby. The indicator lights flickered again and then stayed dark. Reed touched the call button out of habit. Nothing. "Stairs only," I said. "We'll push the corridor toward the pediatrics on 7, but first we need to check radiology below for any shortcut or for threats that could pop up behind us." "Radiology is basement," Daniel said. "There's a service hall that runs between the cores. It's like a hidden street. If something moves there, it pops up everywhere." "Then we can't leave it uncontrolled," I said. "We'll check it to the first turn. If it's clear, we'll mark it as such and focus on the roof." We took the service stair down. The basement was concrete and ductwork and the back-of-house hum that makes hospitals work. The service hall was just where Daniel said. A wide corridor with equipment doors and the heavy shielded entrance to MRI. The lights were on half power. One maintenance cart lay on its side, spill kit open but unused. A coffee mug had rolled under a bench. At the first T intersection, we heard a metallic clatter like a dropped tray. I signaled stop. We posted up. Reed covering left, me right. Park back, one step with Ortiz protected behind. I called out. "City police and fire," I said. "Identify yourself." No answer. Then a slow shuffling sound from the left corridor. Reed looked to me. I gave him the closed fist, hold, and the palm forward. "Do not engage until necessary." The radio crackled on my shoulder and I turned the volume down a notch. Two figures appeared around the corner. They moved without urgency, arms down. Hospital scrubs both. One had a patch that said radiology. The other wore a visitor's badge. Their faces were slack and pale in a way I'd come to recognize over the last 2 days. They were working off some instinct, a pattern I couldn't define. They moved toward us, feet scuffing on the tile. Their hands were bare. There was no blood, no marks that told a story I could read. They did not respond to my voice. "Back 2 steps," I said. "Park, mark the floor. Reed, low ready." We didn't need this corridor to reach the roof. We needed it not to be behind us uncontrolled. The incident action plan called for minimal force inside hospitals. We carried less lethal options in addition to rifles, tasers, OC spray, batons. The training videos for these scenarios were new and too short, but the guidance was clear. Prioritize time and distance. If contact became unavoidable, use what you have, but treat every discharge as critical. We stepped back, and I called command to update our sector picture. "Radiology service hall shows uncontrolled movement," I said. "2 individuals with reanimation behavior. We will seal this corridor at our position and hold the line. We do not require engagement to complete our primary. Marking corridor as no-go." "Copy," command said. "Bravo 2, note that and adjust your route. Bravo 1, proceed with pediatrics corridor." Park slapped down a strip of bright tape across the floor and scrawled, "No go, 1946 B1, with a block arrow pointing away. We moved back up the service stair, breathing easier at the first landing like normal people do and pretending it wasn't relief. On 7, pediatrics was louder. Children carry sound. Even calm, a hallway with the 20 kids sounds like a small school at recess. Bravo 3 had consolidated them into a ward near the roof access and had created a station-by-station plan. Identification, quick assessment, tag, handoff. The helicopter's ETA was now holding short. The pilot wanted a controlled pad with light, not a crowd. The pad's lights were supposed to be controlled from the security desk or by the pilot's radio trigger. That would matter later. Bravo 1, we're good on bodies, Bravo 3's leader, a paramedic named Sherry, said. We need you to secure the stairs and elevator lobby and to keep a clear path. And if you have extra power, we have one pediatric vent that will benefit from a clean power source. We have it, Park said. Point me. We made a one-lane path through the ward. Ortiz checked the vented child first. The numbers were steady. Park connected the inverter and watched the meter settle. The child's mother looked at Park like she'd just handed her an extra hour of life. Park gave a small nod and wrote the input wattage on a piece of tape in neat numbers so the next team would know. I posted Reed and Daniel at the stairwell door with a simple instruction. Nothing comes up that we didn't bring with us. Reed adjusted his sling and settled into a stance you see on training ranges and on bad nights. Daniel, who had probably never done anything like this in his life, held the crash cart's handle like a baton and kept his breathing steady. The first helicopter came at 20:02. I knew the time because the air felt different. The building vibrated in a way a hospital never does, unless there's a storm or a rotor wash. The pilot circled once, called in on UHF, and came to a hover. Sherry moved her first 2 patients efficiently. 1 infant in a transport isolette, 1 toddler with a mask and a stuffed bear clutched to his chest. We kept the corridor clear and counted heads out and back. The helicopter lifted and was gone in under 3 minutes. We repeated that pattern 4 times. Between loads, we checked our corridor markings, looked at our watches, and listened to the building. In between, I tried the hospital security channel to ask about the helipad lights. They were supposed to be off unless activated. They were off each time the helicopter arrived and came on when it crossed the activation point. It was a small piece of normal that kept me anchored to the plan. On the 5th cycle, a hospitalist in pediatrics touched my sleeve. "There's a child in radiology recovery," she said. "They got separated when the team consolidated. He's ambulatory but needs oxygen. He's with a volunteer. We tried to call, no answer." "Location?" I asked. "Recovery Bay 2 by CT," she said. "Basement service hall entrance, first right." I pulled my map from the chest pocket and marked it. That was the hallway we'd labeled no-go. It wasn't far from a position in pure distance, but distance is geometry, and geometry matters when objects move. I called command. Bravo 1 requests permission to send 2 to retrieve an ambulatory pediatric patient from radiology recovery. We marked that corridor no-go earlier due to reanimation movement, but we can hold a short point and make a fast extract. "Approved," command said after a pause. "Keep it tight." We broke into pairs. I took Reed and left Park and Ortiz to hold the pediatrics corridor with Daniel. The hospitalist gave us a small portable oxygen cylinder and a simple mask in a zip bag. We took the service stair down and stopped at the landing to listen. The service hall was the same, bright and sterile, but the 2 figures we'd seen earlier were gone. That wasn't good or bad by itself. Movement in the building was never static. You had to accept that you would never have a perfect picture. Reed covered left as we moved, and I covered right. At the first tee, we saw a volunteer in a yellow vest with a child of maybe 8. The volunteer had done everything right. Simple mask on the kid, one hand holding the handrail, eyes forward. When he saw us, his shoulders dropped. Relief is contagious. I felt it too. "We're coming to you," I said. "We'll move together. Stay with me, hand on my jacket." We closed the distance fast and began to move back. We were 10 steps from the stairwell when we heard a door drag open behind us. The sound of a heavy hinge against a floor you don't want to hear. "Keep moving," I said. "Do not look back." We reached the stairwell door, and Reed pulled it open. I moved the volunteer and child through, then Reed. I looked back for 1/2 second longer than I should have. A third figure, this one in maintenance coveralls, had appeared at the corner and was looking down the hall in a way that felt like a search algorithm. There was no sprint, no bellow, just a steady turn of the head. I went through and closed the door. We moved up 1 flight and walked fast to pediatrics. Park took the portable oxygen and swapped it for a hospital cylinder to keep the portable full for later. The child's numbers improved. The volunteer gave me a thumbs up that looked like he'd practiced it in a mirror to make sure it didn't tremble. On the next helicopter cycle, we loaded 3 children and 1 nurse. The pilot called a 20-minute hold for fuel and coordination. We used that lull to check every mark and battery and to drink water. I hadn't realized how thirsty I was until the bottle was empty. We were walking the corridor when Ortiz called my name. His voice was controlled and low, but there was something in it. I went to him. He had his left sleeve pulled up. On the inside of his forearm was a small bruise with a crescent mark that looked like it could have been a dental imprint. Not broken skin. Not dramatic. The kind of thing you could get hauling a stretcher if someone's hand clamped on you and you pulled away. "When?" I asked. "Radiology recovery," he said. Kid grabbed at me when we turned. I didn't think it broke the skin. It didn't. But it's odd. "Symptoms?" I asked. "None," he said. "I'm clear-headed. Heart rate's a little up because I saw it. No fever, no chills, nothing else. We had protocols for exposure. They weren't perfect. Nothing was." We logged it over the radio on the medical channel, took a photo for the incident record, and marked the time. I looked at Ortiz's eyes, clear and focused on me. He looked back and nodded. He knew what I was thinking. We both knew we would have to keep watching. "Stay paired with Park," I said. "Do nothing alone. If you feel anything off, you say it. No heroics." He nodded again, professional. "Understood." The helicopter came back a little after 21 o'clock. The pilot's voice on UHF sounded like he'd been talking for hours, which he had. We pushed 2 more loads and were down to a handful of pediatric patients who could move on stair chairs. Bravo 3 started a controlled walk to the stairwell with the last group. Park led with the inverter battery, because she had learned on wildland fires that leadership is often just taking the heaviest thing and setting the pace. We were 1 cycle from complete when the helipad lights came on. They came on with the crisp snap of a relay. The pad glowed white from the roof above us. I looked at Cherry. She looked at me. We called the security desk. "Security," Rajan said, "quick pickup." "Did you activate the helipad lights?" I asked. "No," he said. "We show them active, but no input from our side." "Pilot?" I asked on UHF. "Did you trigger?" "Negative," he said. "I'm 2 minutes out. I did not hit the light." There were only a few ways the pad would light on its own. A timer, a fault, or a manual switch thrown at the roof control box. The roof control box was next to the pad itself. "Reed," I said, "with me. Park, you and Ortiz hold the corridor. Sherry, slow your movement. No one on the roof until we clear it." We took the last set of stairs up. The door to the roof was heavy and opened onto a short vestibule. We could see the glow under the door to the pad. I listened. The roof had its own sound, a low wind and the high-pitched whine of electronics. No voices. We pushed through. The helipad was bright and empty. The perimeter lights were on. The windsock hung limp. The control box by the door was closed, but the key slot was in the on position. The key dangled on its chain. Someone had turned it without the helicopter pilot. I scanned the corners. The roof had a mechanical penthouse with louvers. A maintenance door stood open a hand's width, the latch not engaged. A piece of paper fluttered on its edge. I went to it with Reed covering me. Inside, the small maintenance room was empty. It smelled faintly of oil. A service ladder ran up another level to the chiller. It was chained. No one was here. "Roof is clear," I called. Lights were switched on at the box. "Box is now off. We'll keep it off until the pilot calls short final." "Copy," the pilot said. We held the roof for the next cycle. The pilot called on short final. I switched the lights on. He settled in, rotors flattening the air. We moved 3 more out in a trained rhythm we hadn't trained for until this week. The helicopter lifted again. Then Bravo 2 called from the ED corridor, voice loud enough to clip the radio. They had contact in radiology spilling toward the main elevators. Security had sealed 2 fire doors, but motion continued behind them. They were shifting their casualty collection point deeper into the ambulance bay. We were being pinched, not by speed, but by slow pressure from below. We had 1 pediatric vent still on our inverter. We had 3 adult vents in ICU on a mix of floor power and our battery. The helicopter could take 2 more pediatric patients in 10 minutes. The rest we could move by stair chair if we could hold the corridor. I went to Ortiz. He was breathing heavily, not from exertion. He looked at me, eyes steady. "I'm still okay," he said, before I could ask. "I can finish this cycle. After that, you park me somewhere with a door and a buddy." "No one alone," I said. "You're with Park. If Park says stop, you stop." He nodded. Park nodded too. It was not sentimental. It was the kind of agreement that holds because the people inside it want it to. We began the last movements. We loaded 2 pediatric patients and their caregivers. The pilot lifted. The helipad lights went out correctly. The pad dropped back into gray. We consolidated in the pediatrics ward. Sherry gave me a quick count. "We have 4 children who can walk with assistance and 7 adults, mostly staff," she said. "1 adult vent in use. ICU reports 4 intubated, of which 2 are on your inverter batteries. If we move stairs only, we can do it in 30 minutes with enough hands. The corridor below us is slow-moving, but not blocked." "Command," I said on VHF. "This is Bravo 1. We have pediatrics at 7 consolidating for stair descent and 4 intubated in ICU. Radiology is showing continued movement. We can finish the evacuation if we hold the corridor for 30 more minutes. We can also seal and retreat now, leaving the vent-dependent adults in place with battery power projected for 3 to 4 hours. Request guidance." Command came back with the kind of message I don't envy writing. "Bravo 1. This is IC. We cannot reinforce interior corridors in your sector within 30. Charlie teams are tied up 2 blocks over. Per policy, on-scene leadership makes the call with available resources. We will support with transport at the ambulance bay. Your decision." I looked at Park, Reed, and Ortiz. I looked at Sherry. I looked at Daniel, who had held a crash cart like it was a shield for 2 hours. I looked at Leah through the ICU window down 1 floor, her eyes meeting mine across a gap of glass and noise and responsibility. If we pushed the last 30 minutes, we could finish the pediatric evac and move the adult vents down 1 floor to the ICU and consolidate everything for a future lift. We would have to hold the corridor while the slow pressure from radiology kept pressing. If anything accelerated, our retreat was narrower. If we retreated now, we would seal pediatrics in place with the staff who knew their rooms and leave ICU with our batteries and the generators' ups and downs. We would gain certainty for the team and lose something less measurable. I keyed my radio and stopped. It wasn't hesitation. It was making the words precise. Before I spoke, the roof lights came on again. They snapped to full white like they had before. No one was on the roof. No one was at the control box. The pilot was not inbound. The security desk reported no activation. The lights were simply on. The building had its own ideas now, or someone we couldn't see was above us. I looked at the stairwell door to the roof and then at my team. "Decision," I said. "Here's what we do." I split the element. Park and Ortiz would move the remaining pediatric patients with Sherry's team down the stairs to the 6th floor landing and hold there, staged for the final descent when the path was clear. Reed and I would go to ICU and prepare the 2 easiest adult vents for a potential move to the 6th floor, just 1 level down, into a block of rooms closer to the stairs, running off our inverters. That would shorten the carry and reduce exposure if we had to stop mid-move. We'd avoid the basement corridor entirely. We'd mark every turn with time codes so Command would know our path if they sent a follow-on. I called the plan to Command. No one objected, no one endorsed. That was the job. We started. Sherry moved her line like a field trip done right. Hands on the rail, quiet voices, eyes forward. Park carried the inverter again because she always volunteered for the thing that anchored the plan. Ortiz kept his eyes on his own body and on the child holding his hand. He reported his status every 5 minutes without me asking. Still me," he said each time. "Still here." Reed and I went to ICU. Leah had prepared the 2 bays we'd identified. We kept the transition smooth. I carried one side. Reed took the other. We crossed the hall through a set of double doors we locked behind us with a wooden wedge and a rubber doorstop we'd found in a supply closet. We moved the patients into 6th-floor rooms, with doors that closed and visual lines we could control. We drew a bold arrow on the wall. ICU move down 1, 2058, B1. When we finished, I stood in the hall and listened. Through the floor, I could feel the slow, steady footfalls of pressure building below. It wasn't a rush. It was the kind of slow that does not tire. In an old training class, a SWAT instructor once told me to fear the patient pursuit more than the angry one. The patient one never gives up. I thought of that, and then let the thought go because it was unhelpful. On the roof, the lights were still on. The pilot called, confused. He was not yet inbound. He asked if we needed a lighted pad for a reason he didn't know about. I told him to hold and that the pad would be dark on his arrival unless he called it. We moved the pediatric line to the 6th-floor landing. Park and Ortiz stood at the head and foot of the line and counted quietly. Sherry checked names. The children remarkably listened. People do amazing things when asked clearly. "Command," I said. "We are staged at 6 with pediatric evac, and we have moved 2 adult vents 1 level down nearer the stair. We can complete both if we hold for 20. "Copy," Command said. "Ambulance bay is secured. We have space for your arrival." I looked at the stairwell down, then at the stairs up. The helipad lights clicked off for 1 second, then on again, by themselves. We had our plan, we had our people, we had a line to move and a corridor to hold. There was a correct choice for the next 5 minutes, and then another, and then another. That was how we would do it. No slogans, no speeches. Just the next correct decision. We leaned into the stair rail and started down. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.